Hey everybody, it's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 18 Special Edition video. Before we get into this video, obviously this video is going to be uploaded a bit late. Obviously, I started the new week. It's been a little bit rough. I've had a little bit of some rough couple of days. I didn't feel good. Plus, I've been really tired as I'm trying to get back to my normal sleeping pattern. And obviously, for a couple things here, I needed to do a little bit more writing and looking up some of the sports websites to get a little more insight of what I think is going to happen in week number 18. The special edition video will consist of, we're going to go over the playoff scenarios and my predictions of what will happen in week number 18. Bear with me, this is going to be a long video. It is by far my least favorite video to do because obviously you can just look up the scenarios yourselves on majority of the sports websites. But considering that, I mean, I'm just going to go straight into it. I won't get into my thoughts on what happened on week 17 because I want to try to get this video done as quickly as possible. Now, going into week number 18, I'll go over with you the current playoff seedings as of going into this final week. Let's begin with the AFC. Currently the number 1 seed, and they pretty much have clinched it. The Baltimore Ravens, as well as they clinched the AFC North. The Miami Dolphins are barely hanging on to the 2 seed. The Kansas City Chiefs are the AFC West champions. They are the 3rd seed at the moment. The Jaguars are the number 4 seed. The Browns have already clinched the playoff berth. They're the 5th seed at the moment. The Buffalo Bills are the 6th seed, and the Colts are the 7th seed at the moment. There is only 2 football teams that are still in the hunt in the AFC, more or less fighting for that last playoff spot, and that is the Texans and the Steelers. Quickly going into the NFC. Currently, right now, the 49ers hold the number 1 seed. They've already clinched it, as well as the NFC West. The Dallas Cowboys currently hold the 2 seed at the moment. The Lions pretty much now are going to be locked in as the 3rd seed. The Buccaneers are the 4th seed at the moment. The Eagles are the 5th seed. They're already in. They've clinched the playoff berth, so more than likely they'll be locked in as the 5th seed. The Rams are currently the 6th seed, and the Packers are the 7th seed. Now, there's a little bit of some interesting teams here that are in the hunt right now. Seahawks and the Vikings are the only 2 teams left in the NFC vying for that last playoff spot. But you also have the Saints and the Falcons. But these 2 football teams can only get in the playoffs if they win the NFC South Division because they currently do not hold any tiebreakers, let alone given their current records. Now, that going over now, let's go over now the division clinching scenarios. Beginning with the NFC East, the Cowboys currently still hold the lead in the NFC East. All the Cowboys have to do to win the division now, they have to beat the Commanders, or they can win with the Eagles loss to the Giants or tie, or they can tie the Commanders and the Eagles tie at the Giants. That's a little complicated, but let's just give it a fact. All the Cowboys have to do is just win and they're in. They win the division and they're locked in as the 2 seed. The Eagles, for some reason, still have a shot at winning the NFC East, but technically this is a long shot. Of course, they have to beat the Giants and hope the Cowboys lose or tie at the Commanders, or tie with the Giants and a Cowboys loss. So the Eagles kind of, at the moment right now, look, they're already in the postseason, so they can't do any worse. But obviously, I look at that as the Cowboys have the better chance of winning that division. The NFC South still up for grabs. The Buccaneers are still currently in the lead. All the Buccaneers have to do is beat the Panthers or tie them, and Saints loss or tie, and they're in. The Saints, for them to win the South, they got to beat the Falcons, the Buccaneers lose or tie, or they can tie with the Falcons and the Buccaneers lose to the Panthers. For the Falcons to win the NFC South, they have to beat the Saints, and the Buccaneers have to lose to the Panthers. Now, the other 2 divisions that are still up for grabs is still the AFC East. And that's the Bills and Dolphins. Both teams are already in, so whoever wins that game is going to win the division. Bills beat the Dolphins, they win the division. Dolphins win, or even tie. They win the division. The AFC South. Jaguars currently in the lead. All they have to do is beat the Titans or tie them. And the Colts-Texans tie. The Colts, for them to win the division, they have to beat the Texans, and the Jaguars have to lose to the Titans or the game ends in a tie and a Jaguars loss. So the Colts, for them to win the division, is still up in the air right now. The Texans, they have to beat the Colts, and the Jaguars have to lose or tie with the Titans. And that is basically your division clinching scenarios. Now, to clinch playoff spots. Now, this is where it's going to get tedious here, so bear with me here. Bills, in order for them to clinch a playoff berth, of course, they have to beat the Dolphins, a Steelers loss or tie against the Ravens, or a Jaguars loss or tie, or the Texans and Colts have to tie. So the Bills, for them to clinch a playoff berth, is not well in doubt. They have a better chance of winning the division. The Jaguars, they beat the Titans. They can tie at the Titans and the Steelers loss or tie, or Steelers loss and Broncos loss and a Broncos loss or tie, and Texans and Colts cannot end in a tie. Colts, to get a berth, they beat the Texans or tie versus the Texans, and the Steelers lose or tie. For the Steelers, they have the much tougher road. Bear with me, this is a lot. They beat the Ravens and a Bills loss. They can win and a Jaguars loss or tie. Steelers can win at Ravens and Texans and Colts tie. Or they can tie with the Ravens plus a Jaguars loss, and Texans Colts cannot end in a tie. Or Jaguars loss and Denver Broncos win, and Texans Colts cannot end in a tie. Steelers have the tougher road, so that's really, I don't give them much of a chance. Going into the NFC, teams to clinch a playoff spot. Well, obviously, this is the only factor right here. It's really the Packers, Seahawks, and the Vikings that really have a chance at getting that last playoff spot. The Packers really right now are the team that has the best shot because they're currently the 7th seed. All they have to do is beat the Bears and they're in. Or they can tie the Bears, Seahawks loss or tie, and Saints loss or tie. Or a Seahawks loss and a Buccaneers loss. And a tie. Or a tie, Seahawks tie, and the Buccaneers lose. Or a Vikings loss, or a tie, and Seahawks lose, and Buccaneers lose. Or Vikings lose, or a tie, and a Seahawks loss, and a Saints loss. For the Seahawks to get in, they got to beat the Cardinals, and the Packers lose or tie to the Bears. Or they can tie the Cardinals, Packers lose, and Buccaneers lose, or a tie. Or they could tie with the Cardinals, Packers lose, and Saints lose, or tie. For the Vikings to get in, they beat the Lions, Packers lose to the Bears, Seahawks lose to Cardinals, and Saints lose to Falcons. Or beat the Lions, Packers lost to the Bears, Seahawks lose to the Cardinals, or Buccaneers lose to the Panthers. And that is your playoff scenarios. It was tedious. This is why it's not my favorite video to do. Now that we went over the playoff scenarios, now let's get into my predictions, what will happen in Week 18. Bear in mind, these are only predictions. None of these could be locks or guarantees, because one thing about Week 18, the final week of the regular season, every time I've done this, anything can happen in week number 18. No matter what, could be obvious things, but let's be real. a lot of anything could happen. We've seen so many wacky things that happen on the final NFL week of the regular seasons in the past few seasons, and they've been absolutely unbelievable. Currently, I have 6 predictions. So this is what I think is going to happen in week number 18. Some of these might be pretty obvious. Some of these, probably you're going to question why I think this or that will happen. All right, prediction number 1. And this is kind of an obvious one. I don't know, to some of you, you might think I'm crazy here, but prediction number 1, Cowboys will beat the Commanders. They're going to win the NFC East. Last year was kind of the same thing. The Commanders did upset the Cowboys, and the Eagles ended up winning the NFC East division. I don't think second time around it's going to happen. The Commanders are a much worse team than they were last year. And obviously, Ron Rivera is probably his last coaching job. Is probably his last time as coach for that team. Cowboys need the home field advantage for at least the first 2 games of the playoffs in order to have any shot to get to the NFC title game, because they've been excellent at home. They haven't lost the home playoff. They haven't lost the home game all season. But they're on the road against Washington. It's going to be a very tight ball game in this one here. Cowboys will beat the Commanders. They will win the NFC East. The Eagles had their chances against the Cardinals in week 17. They had every opportunity to wrap up the division, and they failed to do so. The Cowboys have taken advantage. I think the Cowboys will win the NFC East division, and the Eagles will be stuck at the 5 seed. Prediction number 2. The Buccaneers will win the NFC South. The Panthers are a mess. And obviously the ownership, a lot of too much distractions. Obviously, if you read what happened, the owner throwing an alcoholic drink at a Jaguars fan. There is a ton of question marks right now with this Panthers team. This team is a mess. This is the obvious thing I could see right here. Probably this would be more of a lock than the Cowboys winning the NFC East. Baker Mayfield is determined. He wants to play in the playoffs again. I don't think he's going to let his team down here. The Panthers they have too much off the field distractions. Obviously, their owner is a jerk, and really right now, how can you play for this football team right now? This is going to be pretty obvious. I don't think I need to say any more in terms of injuries or anything like that. The Buccaneers will win the division. Prediction number 3. The Jaguars will beat the Titans to win the AFC South. The Titans, I don't know where I stand with this team. Obviously, they have some lucky breaks throughout the whole team. I mean, they really have nothing to play for, but they would love to knock off the Jaguars. But given how I know the Jaguars had struggled a lot in the last weeks of the regular season. They were lucky enough to get a win last week in week 17. But I think, to me, they're going to wrap up the division. I think Trevor Lawrence knows full well they need to really get their act together and win this football game against the Titans. The Titans are not that much of a great football team. They've been eliminated from playoff contention. The Jaguars know they got a lot riding on this. Who knows if maybe Doug Peterson's job could be at stake here if they fail to make the postseason. That's a huge question mark, and there'll be a lot of question marks if Trevor Lawrence don't win this football game. But I think in this case, the Jaguars will beat the Titans, and they'll win the AFC South. Prediction number 4. The Colts will beat the Texans, and they'll get the last playoff spot. There's some question marks now with C.J. Stroud, given that he's been cleared from concussion protocol. I don't know how healthy he is. There's a lot of question marks going on with that Houston offense. And Gardner Minshew for the Colts, he's played pretty well. And they've been fortunate enough that he's been playing some pretty good football. This could be this is definitely going to be a close game Saturday night. But I think happens here, I think the Colts are at home here. I like the Colts in this game. I think they beat the Texans to get that last playoff spot. They would get the 7th seed. And I'm pretty much standing with it because I have a lot of questions regarding C.J. Stroud and how healthy he really is. Prediction number 5. The Packers beat the Bears. They will get into the postseason and they will clinch the number 6 seed. They will go ahead of the Rams. It doesn't matter if the Rams win or lose. the Packers will be the 6th seed. There's no way it's going to be the same thing like last year, even though they had Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And Jordan Love and the Packers have been red hot. This is a team that could be a silent killer going into the postseason. I don't know if I want to play the Packers going into the start of the playoffs, even though there's some teams that are much better than they are. Whoever their first round opponent could be for the Green Bay, this could be very, very scary wild card opening round. And the way it's looking right now, the Packers would end up playing the Lions in the wild card round. It'll be a close football game against the Bears, but they're in home in Lambeau Field. I'll give a slight edge to the Packers. I think the Packers will barely beat the Bears to get that last playoff. So I don't think it's going to be the same thing like last year. I think the Packers will win this time. And the last prediction number 6. The Bills will beat the Dolphins to win the AFC East. The reason why I'm picking that is because the Dolphins going into this game are really banged up. Who knows how healthy Hill is? They lost Chubbs. I don't think he'll be ready for that game. Tula got hurt. He hurt his shoulder against the Ravens. This team is a huge question mark, even though the Dolphins have been good at home. But you're facing a Buffalo Bills team that has been red hot, and they're getting hot at the right time. And I think, to me, that spells trouble for whoever faces the Bills in the postseason. Bills beating the Dolphins will guarantee the Bills the 2nd seed, and will actually drop the Dolphins to possibly the 6th seed, because I think the Browns will beat the Bengals to hold on to that number 5 seed. So there you go. That's all of my 6 predictions for what I think will happen in week number 18. And here are your final projected AFC and NFC 1 through 7 seeds. In the AFC, it will be Ravens number 1, Bills number 2, Chiefs number 3, Jaguars number 4, Browns number 5, Dolphins number 6, and Colts number 7. The Dolphins will move down to the 6th seed if the Browns beat the Bengals, because the Browns kind of win on tiebreakers against the Dolphins. So that's what the projected final seeds for the AFC will be. Now in the NFC, it's going to be like this. 49ers are the 1 seed, Cowboys are the 2nd seed, Lions are the 3rd seed, Buccaneers are the 4th seed, Eagles are the 5th seed, Packers are the 6th seed, and the Rams will go to the 7th seed. And that's it, everybody. That is my prediction and my special edition video for week number 18. Next week, I will be back, and I definitely will talk about the playoffs as we talk about Super Wild Card Weekend. Finally, the NFL playoffs are here. So everybody who's been watching my video, bear with me. It's a long video. I'm going to try to get this as probably shortened as much as possible. But I pretty much have gone everything over with you. It's not my favorite video. It wouldn't surprise me if this gets low ratings. I really don't care, because really, I just want to watch Week 18. I can't wait to see what happens this weekend on the final weekend of the NFL regular season, heading into the playoffs. All right, everybody. I'll talk to you guys next week for the playoffs when I talk about Super Wild Card Weekend. Take care and enjoy this NFL weekend.